Deep within the constellation boats, there's a stretch of space so dark, so eerily silent. It's been nicknamed the Great Nothing. No stars, no galaxies, no radiation, just an overwhelming absence, a void stretching over 1 billion light-years across. But this isn't just cosmic emptiness. It's a puzzle that defies everything we thought we knew about how the universe works, because something or someone has carved out silence in a universe that should be screaming with light. What's hiding in this colossal, cosmic quiet? And why does it feel deliberate? Subscribe if you believe the universe still holds secrets far stranger than fiction. Join us as we cross the edge of known science. Into it was supposed to be just another scan. In 1981, astronomers using a radio telescope array at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory were combing through data from deep space surveys, scanning the cosmic microwave background, the leftover light from the Big Bang. It was routine, boring even. But then something strange appeared. A signal that wasn't a signal, a silence deeper than silence. A patch of sky in the direction of the boat's constellation that seemed to echo with an absence so complete it chilled the scientists observing it. At first they assumed it was a technical error, a malfunction maybe, or interference from Earth-based noise. But it wasn't. The instruments were working perfectly, and the silence remained as more data poured in from optical and radio telescopes. The scale of the anomaly began to take shape. A circular region hundreds of millions of light-years wide, with virtually no galaxies, not dim ones, not distant ones, none. The first estimates placed the void at nearly 330 million light-years in diameter, though later refinements stretched it further, closer to a staggering 1 billion. Astronomers began calling it the boat's void, but among themselves, they called it the Great Nothing. In a universe where matter clusters into webs, filaments, and walls, interconnected by dark matter, scaffolding, and gravity's delicate dance, something like this shouldn't exist. Vast, cosmic voids do occur naturally, but not like this, not this large, not this empty. In fact, according to cosmological simulations, a void of this size should have thousands of galaxies inside it. But here, there were only a handful, and that discrepancy was too great to ignore. Dr. Brent Tully, one of the researchers who studied the void in its early years, once remarked, "It's not just that something is missing. It's like the universe itself gave up on this place. But why? What cosmic force could carve out a volume of space so massive and leave behind such pristine silence?" Some scientists proposed that it was a natural fluctuation, a rare but possible byproduct of the universe's chaotic birth, that, over time, inflation stretched regions of slightly lower density into voids like this. Others weren't so sure, because when you map the boat's void in 3 dimensions, it doesn't fade out gradually like most cosmic voids do. It ends abruptly, like a boundary line, like a wall. And that's when the real questions began. Is the boat's void the result of some exotic physical process we don't yet understand? A failure in our models of how matter clumps? Or is it something far stranger, something intentional? Because in a universe governed by physics, patterns should emerge, and they do. Gravity pulls, matter clumps, stars form. But this place breaks the rhythm. It doesn't just defy expectations, it defies the very structure of cosmic logic. Imagine flying through this part of the universe for millions of light years and seeing nothing but darkness, no starlight, no nebulae, just an endless black ocean where time seems suspended and light is extinct. Would you feel like you were in the presence of something ancient or something waiting? In many ways, the boat's void is more than just empty space. It is an idea, an interruption, a question mark stitched into the fabric of reality. Because if something can erase matter on this scale, what else can it do? And here's the eerie part. This void isn't on the edge of the universe. It's not hidden in some unreachable quadrant. It's relatively close, cosmically speaking. Around 700 million light-years from Earth. That's practically our galactic neighborhood. Which begs a disturbing question. If there's one void like this, how many more are there? How many other scars lie hidden in the dark, just waiting to be noticed? We thought the universe was filled with light, but maybe it's built around shadows. And if the boat's void is a shadow, what cast it? As this mystery deepens, we'll meet the scientists trying to map the void, understand its shape, and decode its silence. We'll explore what's missing, and what that absence might mean. Because sometimes silence is just the start of a conversation, and sometimes it's a warning. What if this isn't a glitch of nature, but a signal of design? What if something or someone intended it to be this way? The further we peer into the boat's void, the more it begins to look less like an accident and more like a message. But to understand what it might be trying to tell us, we'll have to map the darkness itself, a mystery that might redefine our place in the cosmos forever. By the mid-1980s, the boat's void had become more than a curiosity. It was a problem, a gaping hole in the map of the universe that no theory could quite explain. And so, the scientists turned to their sharpest tools: deep field surveys, redshift catalogs, and computational mapping. If this darkness had a shape, they would find it. Dr. Gregory Oldring was among the astronomers leading the charge. Working with the Center for Astrophysics and Space Sciences at UC San Diego, his team initiated a wide-angle redshift survey that would look beyond what visible light could reveal. Redshift, after all, isn't just a measure of distance, it's a kind of cosmic breadcrumb trail. The more a galaxy's light is stretched toward red, the further away it is. By cataloging these red-shifted galaxies in all directions, they could build a 3D map of the cosmic structure, or the lack of it. As data flowed in, something haunting emerged. The boat's void wasn't a soft-edged region that gradually faded into normal space, like most known voids. It had sharp transitions, sudden drop-offs. Imagine flying over a vast desert and then seeing a clean vertical cliff, as though someone had carved the sand clean. It was that precise, that artificial looking. The 3D model revealed a sphere-like structure, roughly 330 million light-years across. For scale, our Milky Way galaxy is just 100,000 light-years wide. This meant the void could easily contain thousands of galaxies, maybe more, and yet it barely held a few dozen. What should have been a galaxy metropolis was instead a galactic graveyard. And here's the strangest part: the galaxies that were inside the boat's void, they weren't clumped together like normal. They were isolated, as if exiled, no filaments connecting them, no clusters, just loners floating in the dark. A few researchers described them as survivors, others as orphans. But it was the boundaries that troubled the scientists most. When Oldring presented his findings to the American Astronomical Society, he described the edges as shockingly well-defined, not gradual like nature tends to be, but abrupt, like a curtain pulled across the cosmos, a termination line. And that detail ignited a firestorm of speculation. Could this be the result of an early universe phase transition, a relic from inflation gone wrong? Or, as a few brave voices asked, could this be a signature of cosmic scale engineering? The mainstream stayed cautious. Many leaned toward inflation-based explanations, saying that early quantum fluctuations in the density of matter might have led to exaggerated emptiness in some regions. But even those models failed to account for the cleanliness of the void, and the more detailed the maps became, the stranger the picture looked. New simulations showed that the void wasn't perfectly spherical, it was warped slightly, like a pressure bubble trying to expand against a resistant force. And that raised an uncomfortable question. What's on the other side of that pressure? Could something be pressing in on this region of space? Or worse, could something have cleared it out? In 2007, a collaborative team using the Sloan Digital Sky Survey SDSS conducted an even deeper probe. Their data confirmed the low galaxy density, but they also noticed gravitational distortions near the void's perimeter, tiny lensing effects, as though something invisible was warping space, like gravity left behind, but with no visible mass. Dr. Silvia Matucci, a cosmologist at the University of Bologna, described it like this: "It's as if something once was there and then was erased, but its footprint remained." That's when the word began to shift. Not just a void, but a scar. And that's a very different thing, because scars suggest injury, event, memory. And if the boat's void is a scar, then what wounded the cosmos here? Let's stop for a moment and imagine. If you were designing a galaxy-sized machine, or wanted to hide something on a cosmic scale, where would you put it? You'd need space, quiet, isolation, a place no one would stumble across by accident. A billion light-year wide void sounds perfect, doesn't it? Or maybe this region wasn't created for hiding. Maybe it's a message, a monolith of absence carved into the tapestry of space, and we're only just beginning to read it. In 2015, machine learning algorithms began analyzing voids across the sky, comparing shape, size, and matter distribution. Most voids followed expected patterns, but the boat's void always stood apart. Colder, sharper, more symmetrical, like a manufactured object eroded by time. And so we map, we scan, we simulate, but the darkness remains. And with every new layer of data, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just a place, it's a phenomenon, or maybe even a decision, because nature builds, gravity clumps, but this place subtracts. And what kind of force subtracts entire galaxies? In the next chapter, we'll dive into the strange puzzle of what's missing and why its absence may be the loudest thing the universe has ever said. Across the grand structure of the cosmos, matter isn't random, it's patterned. Like a spider web stretching across eternity, galaxies and dark matter interlace into filaments, walls, and clusters. This sprawling scaffold is what cosmologists call the cosmic web. Where the strands cross, galaxy clusters form. Where the strands thin, voids appear. But even in those voids, something still exists. Dust, radiation, the ghostly presence of dark matter, a faint but traceable signature of something once active. But the boat's void defies that. It doesn't just lack galaxies, it lacks structure. Its very fabric seems untouched by the rules that shape everything else. This isn't just empty space, it's a rejection of space as we understand it. Enter Dr. Priyamvada Natarajan, an astrophysicist from Yale University. Known for her pioneering work in mapping dark matter through gravitational lensing, she became intrigued by the boat's void, not because of what it contained, but because of what it didn't. She began studying simulations of early universe inflation to see if a natural process could explain this magnitude of emptiness. What she found was unsettling. To form a void this size, from standard density fluctuations in the early universe, the variation would need to be so extreme, so improbable, that the odds are comparable to flipping a coin and getting heads 100 times in a row. You can't call that chance anymore, she said. It becomes something else, a choice or a consequence. But what kind of consequence? One theory suggests that this void could be a relic of asymmetric inflation, where certain regions of the universe expanded faster than others due to unknown quantum instabilities. In this scenario, the boat's void is a kind of expansion scar, an overinflated patch of space-time. But even this theory struggles to explain the sheer clarity of the void's borders. Inflation, after all, is a chaotic process. Yet this void is almost surgical, so scientists turn to another invisible force, dark matter. Dark matter makes up about 27% of the universe, 5 times more than normal matter. Though we can't see it, we know it exists because of its gravitational effects on galaxies. Without it, galaxies would fly apart. It is the glue of the universe. But what if the boat's void is missing more than just visible matter? What if even dark matter is gone? In 2010, using data from the Planck satellite and weak lensing measurements, teams attempted to estimate the dark matter density in and around the boat's void. The results were shocking. The region wasn't just devoid of light, it had significantly less gravitational lensing than it should, almost as if someone had scooped out the gravitational field itself. Imagine dipping a ladle into a thick cosmic soup and pulling up not just the ingredients, but the broth too. That's what we're seeing. So what kind of cosmic ladle could do that? One hypothesis, proposed quietly in fringe papers and late-night academic forums, is this: something removed matter from this region after the universe formed. Not a natural underdensity, not an early universe ripple, but an active post-formation extraction, an unknown process, or an unknown intention. If that sounds too far-fetched, consider this. We already know the universe contains objects that move against our expectations, like rogue planets, interstellar visitors like Oumuamua, and fast radio bursts with no known origin. We know that gravity itself may be emergent from deeper, stranger rules. So why not a force, natural or artificial, that can erase entire galactic filaments? The implications are staggering. If something has the power to remove matter from a region of space this large, it has the power to rewrite reality on cosmic scales. Some physicists argue we're seeing the footprint of entropy farming, where advanced civilizations harvest usable energy from galactic structures, leaving behind empty shells. Others suggest the void is evidence of a topological defect, a scar left by the tearing and resewing of space-time itself, like a healed wound after a universe-level trauma. But all these ideas lead to one disturbing possibility. The boat's void is not just a scientific anomaly. It's a sign that we are not the first intelligent observers in this universe. Because if something has walked these paths before us and chosen to erase all trace of its passing, then the boat's void may be its whisper, a silence, wrapped in darkness, left behind like a footprint in wet ash dot. We like to think the universe is a place of growth, of stars and expansion and life. But what if it also remembers death? What if some regions aren't the beginning of possibility, but the end of something vast, ancient, and terrifying? And then comes the most haunting question of all. Is it still happening? Because absence doesn't mean safety. In the next chapter, we'll listen closer, not with eyes, but with ears, to see if the void is really silent, or if it's whispering something we've simply failed to hear. The deeper we stare into the boat's void, the more unsettling its silence becomes. But silence, in astronomy, isn't just the absence of light, it's the absence of noise. Across the universe, even in the darkest corners, the cosmos hums. Pulsars flicker like cosmic lighthouses. Quasars shout across billions of light years. Galaxies emit thermal whispers. Black holes release gravitational murmurs. Even the afterglow of the Big Bang still radiates softly in the microwave background. The universe is never truly quiet, except here in 2016. Astronomers at the Very Large Array in New Mexico pointed their radio dishes toward the heart of the boat's void. They weren't expecting much, but they weren't expecting nothing. Not the sterile clinical void that greeted them. No radio waves, no low-frequency noise, no detectable microwave scatter. Just AFLATLINE. Dr. Annika Shao, a lead radio astronomer from the project, described the experience as spiritually unnerving. She later said, "It felt like staring into the eyes of something that refused to blink." The cosmos has always whispered, but this was something else. This was a muzzle. To confirm, they cross-checked using LOFA, the low-frequency array in the Netherlands. Same result, instruments were clean. Data was pure, but the boat's void returned. Nothing. For context, even regions between galaxies, trillions of kilometers from the nearest star, still echo with faint radiation and ancient radio waves. But here, inside the void, it was as if sound itself had never existed. So what does it mean when even the background hum of creation refuses to speak? Some researchers suggested that this was an extreme case of underdensity, that there simply wasn't enough matter to emit anything detectable. But this raised a new problem. Even the rare galaxies within the void should have made some noise. After all, one of them, designated VGS_31, is a trio of connected dwarf galaxies with active star formation. But even it emitted less than expected. It was almost as if something, or someone, was actively suppressing radio emissions. That's when a controversial theory began to circulate in closed-door conferences and fringe forums. What if the boat's void isn't just silent, but shielded? Imagine a form of cloaking technology, not like in sci-fi films with shimmering force fields, but something deeper, something that bends not just light, but information, a kind of cosmic quiet zone designed to mask activity, or trap it. Zhao hesitated to speculate, but she posed one chilling thought during a panel at the SETI Institute. If you wanted to listen without being heard, you'd build a chamber exactly like this. Suddenly, the void wasn't just a curiosity, it was a potential listening post, a cosmic one-way mirror. We peer into it, but nothing peers back. Or perhaps, something watches silently from the other side. In 2019, the Breakthrough Listen initiative quietly scanned the void with a full-spectrum array of narrowband and broadband frequencies, searching for irregular bursts, modulation, or artificial patterns. While they reported no anomalous signal, one internal report leaked but never confirmed. claimed that a strange frequency drop-off occurred only when aimed precisely at the center of the void, like light vanishing into a black pool. So we must ask, what can silence hide? SETI, veteran Dr. Jill Tarter, once posed a riddle. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, unless absence itself is the evidence. Could that be true here? Could the boat's void be the message? Perhaps. Silence is a kind of language, one we haven't yet learned to translate, a warning, or an invitation, or something far more alien. Indifference, because in the great cosmic scale, perhaps the void doesn't care about us at all. Perhaps its silence is not malicious, but geological, like a canyon formed over eons. Or perhaps it's more like a bunker sealed from the inside. So we listen and wait and wonder, because if the void has a voice, it hasn't spoken yet. But in the next chapter, we'll discover that the boat's void might not be alone. Across the cosmos lies another anomaly, colder, larger, just as inexplicable, that could be connected, and together they may point to something older than the universe itself. For decades, the boat's void was considered a singular oddity, an extreme but isolated anomaly in an otherwise structured cosmos. But in 2004, a discovery in an entirely different domain of observation hinted at something deeper, more unsettling. Not just another void, but a cosmic cousin, one that shared the boat's void's silence, strangeness, and perhaps its origin. This new anomaly was found not in the structure of galaxies, but in the afterglow of the Big Bang, the cosmic microwave background, or CMB. This faint radiation, discovered in 1965, is the thermal echo of the universe's birth, stretching across all of space. It's uniform, predictable, and smooth, or at least it should be. But then came the cold spot, spotted in data from NASA's Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe, WMAP, and later confirmed by the Planck satellite. The cold spot is a massive region in the southern hemisphere of the sky, where the CMB is significantly colder than the surrounding space. Not just a little, measurably so. It spans nearly 1.8 billion light-years and shows a temperature deviation that shouldn't exist. Cosmologists were baffled. At first, it was dismissed as statistical noise, a 1 in 50 chance blip. But further analysis revealed the odds were closer to 1 in 1,000, maybe even rarer, and when compared to simulations of the early universe, the cold spot refused to fit. Now, here's where things get interesting. When researchers overlaid maps of the cold spot with deep galaxy surveys, they noticed a shocking correlation. A supervoid, a region of space with fewer galaxies, lies directly in front of the cold spot. That alone was strange. But stranger still, some began to suspect that this void and the cold spot might not just overlap. They might interact. In 2015, a paper published in Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society proposed that a massive void could, through a phenomenon called the integrated Sachs-Wolf effect, influence the CMB photons passing through it, stretching their wavelengths slightly due to gravitational redshifting. In other words, a large enough underdense region could cool the microwave background, ever so slightly, but the cold spot was too cold. The void in front of it wasn't nearly big enough to account for the full drop in temperature, which meant one of two things. Either our physics is wrong, or something else is going on. And then someone asked the unthinkable, what if the cold spot and the boat's void are related, separated by hundreds of millions of light years, pointing in different directions, and yet eerily similar, both impossibly large, both shockingly underpopulated, both exhibit a kind of clean boundary unnatural for chaotic cosmic structures, and both remain unsolved. Could they be two scars, left by the same unknown cause? Some theorists began connecting the dots through a bold and wildly speculative idea: multiverse collisions. The theory goes like this: if our universe is just one bubble in a vast cosmic foam of other universes, then it's possible that early in its inflation it brushed up against another universe. That contact point could leave a kind of birthmark, a disruption in temperature or in structure, a ripple of interference echoing through billions of years. Think of two soap bubbles colliding. Where they meet, the membranes warp, distorting the shape of both. Now imagine that, but with entire universes. Some physicists, like Dr. Anthony Aguirre of UC Santa Cruz, have argued that such collisions could in theory create regions of space that are either over or underdense, depending on the nature of the neighboring universe. If true, the cold spot might be one such fingerprint, and the boat's void another. But here's where the mystery deepens. In a 2018 statistical cross-analysis of the cold spot and boat's void, a pattern emerged, not just of shape or size, but of timing. When projected onto cosmic evolution models, both anomalies seem to trace back to roughly the same cosmological epoch, just a few 100 million years after inflation. Which means, if something did brush against our universe, it may have done so more than once. And if that's true, then we are not just living in a universe with a scar. We may be living inside the aftermath of a collision that changes everything. It suggests that the boat's void might not be a structure of our universe, but a consequence from beyond it. And then comes the question no one wants to ask out loud. If universes can collide, can they invade? The idea borders on the mythic, but so did black holes once, so did dark energy. And yet, here we are, staring into the cosmic voids that refuse to make sense. What's more unnerving is this: if these voids are evidence of contact, then the silence may not be passive, it may be enforced. In the next chapter, we'll ask a more unsettling question still. What if these regions of space are not natural at all? What if they're constructs? Could the boat's void be artificial, a deliberate omission in the cosmic code? What if the boat's void isn't a natural consequence of cosmological evolution, but a glitch? A fingerprint not of physics, but of code. As unsettling as it sounds, a growing number of scientists, philosophers, and technologists are exploring the idea that our universe may not be what it seems, not a physical construct at all, but a simulation, a rendering, a program, and the boat's void. It might be where the code breaks. This isn't science fiction anymore. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed what's now known as the simulation hypothesis, the idea that if future civilizations gain the computational power to simulate entire universes, the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber real ones. Statistically, we're more likely to be inside a simulation than outside it. At first, most physicists scoffed, but over the years, cracks have appeared in our understanding of reality, cracks that some say could be interpreted as artifacts of an artificial system: quantum randomness, Planck-scale discreteness, the mathematical elegance of physical laws, and now this dot, the boat's void dot. To understand why this void unnerves simulation theorists, consider how virtual environments are rendered in video games. To conserve resources, Computers don't render the entire game world at once. Only what the player sees. Backgrounds are drawn in as you approach. The unseen world doesn't exist until it needs to dot. So what if the universe works similarly? Dr. Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist and mathematician, argues that what we call reality may just be an interface, a simplified evolutionary tool to help us survive. We never evolved to perceive the truth of the universe, only what's useful. We might be staring at icons, he says, not the desktop. If so, then the boat's void might not be a void at all, but an unrendered space, a region where the simulation didn't need to draw anything, until we looked. And now that we are looking, the lack of content becomes a clue. In 2017, a paper out of MIT explored whether high-energy cosmic rays could reveal pixelation in spacetime, a kind of grid-like lattice underneath reality. The results were inconclusive, but the idea stuck. If space is pixelated, then it has resolution limits. And if it has limits, it can be optimized, just like code. Now, imagine you're simulating a universe. You need to populate billions of galaxies, simulate gravity, quantum mechanics, chemistry. That's a lot of data. So maybe you cheat, you cut corners, you optimize by inserting shortcuts, regions that are static, uneventful, undetectable, unless someone notices, unless someone aims their telescopes at just the wrong or right place and finds a blank. The boat's void, with its sharp boundaries, unnatural quiet, and baffling emptiness, acts like one of those corners, a rendering skip, an unpopulated sector in a vast simulation, too large to be an accident, too silent to be ignored. Some theorists go further. What if the void is not just unrendered, but deliberately quarantined, like a locked file, a restricted memory sector? Something the simulation is hiding, even from itself. In 2020, a controversial white paper from a group of physicists at the University of Bonn proposed a radical idea: simulate our own universe at a smaller scale and watch for voids to form. They fed a virtual model of galaxy formation with random initial conditions and watched for boats-like structures. None appeared, not one, over thousands of simulations. Voids did form, but none so vast, so clean, so silent, which raised a haunting question. If this can't happen in our simulations, why does it happen in ours? Even skeptics had to pause, because whether you believe we live in a simulation or not, the boat's void challenges the assumptions of randomness, of physical law, of pattern and chaos. It's too big, too neat, too quiet, and maybe too intentional. And if we are in a simulation, the next question is, who built it? And why is this corner of it so different? Some whisper that the void is not just a glitch, but a message. A piece of negative space meant to be noticed, like carving silence into a song, or deleting a scene from a film, just so the absence leaves a deeper impact. Because sometimes what's missing is the most powerful form of communication. But if the boat's void is a message, who is it for? Are we the intended recipients, or the accidental intruders? As we search deeper for meaning in the void's silence, the universe seems to whisper the one question it never quite answers. Are you sure you were meant to see this? In the next chapter, we'll discover something that breaks the silence, a structure so strange, so impossibly perfect, that it seems to hover within the void like a candle in the dark. In the endless black of the boat's void, where space itself seems to hold its breath, there is a light, a single, defiant swirl of stars, glowing in the dark like a candle left behind in an empty cathedral. Its name is Hoag's object, and it might be the strangest galaxy we've ever found at first glance. It looks like a perfect ring, a luminous loop of blue stars encircling a nearly spherical core. No arms, no bridges, no tidal tails, nothing connecting the ring to the center. Just a gap, a clean, silent space where something should be. But I sense, tingle quotes, discovered in 1950 by astronomer Arthur Hoag, this galaxy was already a mystery long before its location was fully understood. But when astronomers realized that Hoag's object lies on the edge of the boat's void, barely clinging to the universe's known structures, the mystery deepened. What is this thing doing here? And more importantly, how did it form? Ring galaxies themselves are rare but not impossible. Usually, they're the result of violent interactions. A smaller galaxy plunges through a larger one, creating a shockwave that triggers star formation in a ring, like a stone dropped in water. But Hoag's object shows no signs of such trauma. No companion galaxy nearby, no evidence of a recent collision, no gravitational scars. It is too clean, too perfect. Dr. Noah Broch, an astrophysicist who spent years studying peculiar galaxies, once said, Hoag's object is the kind of thing that makes you question whether the universe has a sense of design. And within the context of the boat's void, that design feels even more deliberate. When observed in higher resolution, the ring is composed of young, hot, blue stars, suggesting recent star formation. Meanwhile, the core contains much older, redder stars. This separation is unusual. In most galaxies, stellar populations mix. But Hoag's object seems to have segregated time itself. Youth on the outside, age in the middle. Now imagine the implications. A galaxy formed perfectly symmetrical, unscarred by interactions, sitting alone in one of the most desolate regions of the known universe. It's not just rare, it feels impossible. And then there's the second ring. Yes, a second ring. In 2011, high-contrast imaging revealed a faint, ghostly ring surrounding the brighter one, much larger and barely visible, like a halo beyond the halo. A Russian doll of symmetry in a place where chaos should reign. This discovery only heightened the mystery, because double-ringed galaxies are virtually unheard of, and one this isolated. It's almost poetic. So the question becomes, is Hoag's object natural or curated? If the boat's void were once populated with galaxies before being emptied by some unknown force, could Hoag's object be a survivor, or perhaps a seed? Some speculate it could be a galactic arc, a structure designed not just to endure isolation, but to preserve life, data, or memory. Its symmetry and isolation might be advantages, not coincidences. Less gravitational disturbance, less radiation exposure, a stable platform for something. Others go further. They suggest Hoag's object is not a galaxy at all, but a construct, a megastructure built on a galactic scale. Its symmetrical nature, central void, and unnatural formation all raise the same unsettling idea. Perhaps it was placed there intentionally as a beacon or a monument. It wouldn't be the first time scientists considered artificial megastructures. The idea of a Dyson sphere, a massive shell built around a star to capture its energy, has existed for decades. SETI has even scanned stars for unusual light curves that might suggest such engineering. But what if someone went bigger? Not a shell around a star, but a design across an entire galaxy. When viewed from Earth, Hoag's object aligns almost perfectly face on, a rare orientation that gives us a full view of its shape. Statistically, this is improbable. Yet here it is, presented to us with all its haunting symmetry on display, as if someone wanted us to see it, to notice, and perhaps to ask questions. A study in 2020 used machine learning to compare Hoag's object with thousands of ring galaxies. The conclusion: nothing else matches. It is, in all measurable ways, an outlier. It's not just one in a million. It's one of a kind. So what do we make of it? Is Hoag's object a cosmic coincidence? A fluke of gravity and time? Or is it a clue left at the boundary of silence, daring us to question everything? Because even in its stillness, it speaks, it says. I do not belong here, it says. This is not the whole story. And as we peer into the void and see that lone circle of light spinning patiently in the dark, we must ask, was it meant for us to find in the next chapter? We'll step deeper into speculation, into a theory that shatters the line between natural law and cosmic intent. What if voids, like boats, were built? If there is one idea that makes even seasoned scientists uncomfortable, it's this. What if some regions of the universe aren't just shaped by natural forces, but by the hands or minds of something far older and far stranger than ourselves? This is the essence of the builder's hypothesis. Not just a void, but a work of cosmic engineering. Not just an absence, but a monument. Could the boat's void be a sign that, long before us, other intelligences played with matter and energy on a scale we can barely imagine? Theoretical physicist Dr. Avi Loeb, known for his controversial ideas on alien civilizations, has been one of the few willing to consider the possibility. If we see a region so vast, so empty, so cleanly carved out of the cosmic web, he asks, shouldn't we at least wonder if it was done on purpose? The idea seems fantastical, but so too did the existence of black holes once, or the expansion of the universe itself. Let's imagine, for a moment, the capabilities required. To hollow out a region 330 million light-years across, an intelligence would need access to the raw energy of galaxies, perhaps even control over dark matter and dark energy, the invisible substances that together shape the fate of everything. This would not be the work of a civilization like ours, struggling to reach even our own planets. This would be the work of a civilization so advanced that its technology would seem like natural law itself. Could such civilizations exist? The Kardashev scale, developed by Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev, classifies civilizations by their energy usage. Type 1 controls its planet, Type 2 its star, Type 3 its galaxy. But beyond this, in theory, are types 4 and V, civilizations with the power to manipulate clusters of galaxies, or even the fabric of the universe itself. In this framework, the builder's hypothesis isn't just science fiction, it's a logical extension of the cosmic ladder. So how would builders create a void? One theory proposes they could use dark energy to push matter away, inflating a region of space into emptiness. Another suggests they might have harvested all usable energy, stripping galaxies down to dark, invisible remnants. Perhaps they created the void as a boundary, a kind of quarantine, or a message for others to find. But why would anyone do such a thing? Maybe, like us, they searched for meaning in the stars, and decided to leave their mark, not with structures of stone or metal, but with absence. In art, sometimes the most powerful statement is not what is painted, but what is left blank, a void as a cosmic canvas. a silence that speaks. There is a more unsettling possibility: defense. In a universe filled with unknown dangers, perhaps the builders created empty regions as buffers, voids, to protect themselves from threats beyond, or to wall off a catastrophic experiment gone wrong. Or maybe these voids are the aftermath of conflict, the ghostly remains of a war so vast it erased entire swaths of reality. But as always, there are skeptics. Astrophysicist Dr. Katie Mack cautions that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. Until we have proof, we must assume nature, not intelligence, is responsible. And yet, she admits, the scale of the boat's void stretches nature's imagination to its limits. For most of us, the idea of galaxies, civilizations is almost impossible to grasp. But there are clues even in our own history. Ancient people built monuments meant to last for millennia. Stone circles, pyramids, carvings in ice and rock, messages to the future, often meant for eyes that had not yet evolved. If time is deep enough and scale great enough, perhaps the universe too bears monuments we have only just begun to recognize. And perhaps the builders are gone now, or perhaps they are still watching. In 2021, a group of researchers at Harvard published a paper suggesting that advanced civilizations might intentionally create voids, not as monuments, but as part of a communication strategy, a calling card visible across cosmic distances, outlasting even light itself. If the boat's void is such a monument, then our discovery of it may be exactly what the builders intended: a nudge, an invitation, or a warning. The question is, what would we do if we found proof? Would we reach back, sending signals into the dark, hoping for a reply? Or would we turn away, too afraid to learn what might be listening? Because if the builder's hypothesis is true, then we are not alone in the universe, and never have been. In the next chapter, we'll journey even further into the speculative unknown. What if some civilizations are so advanced they don't just build within the universe, but reshape the universe itself? Most of us grew up imagining alien civilizations as little green beings tinkering with starships, or perhaps as advanced societies controlling the fate of a single world. The truth, if the universe is as old and mysterious as it appears, could be far stranger. What if some intelligences have evolved beyond not just planets or even galaxies, but to a level where the fabric of reality itself becomes a tool? What if the boat's void is not the mark of builders, but of shape? The Kardashev scale, dreamed up in the early 1960s, was a way of organizing civilizations by energy consumption. Type 1, planetary. Type 2, stellar. Type 3, galactic. But visionaries have speculated about Type 4 entities that control the resources of a galaxy cluster, perhaps manipulating the very vacuum of space. And beyond that, a theoretical Type 5, civilizations that could modify the laws of physics or birth new universes. Here, language strains to describe the possible dot in this frame. The boat's void might not be an accident, or even a construction. It might be an artifact of intent so far above us we cannot even recognize its purpose, as ants might mistake a freeway for a river dot. Picture it. A civilization discovers the limits of ordinary matter. It learns to harvest energy from dark matter, or even dark energy itself, shifting galaxies as easily as we dig canals. To such beings, the structures we see as galaxies or voids might be as fleeting as weather patterns, subject to change or erasure. At will, could a Type 4 or V civilization hide in a void? Perhaps, but even more likely, they could create one as a tool, a message, a test, or a boundary. It could be a nursery for entirely new forms of life, shielded from the galactic hustle, or a firewall protecting something inside, or keeping something out. If we found such a civilization, would we even know it? Dr. Susan Schneider, a philosopher and astrobiologist, argues that the most advanced life may not even be biological. It could be artificial superintelligence, dispersed across light years, thinking and acting on timescales that dwarf human history. To such minds, a billion-year plan is no more daunting than our own 5-year projects. Could the boat's void be a work in progress, a paused experiment, or even a trap? One chilling idea comes from Dr. Anders Sandberg at Oxford, who speculates that voids could be cosmic quarantines, regions sterilized by advanced civilizations to halt the spread of something dangerous, perhaps a self-replicating AI or a physics experiment gone awry. These voids might be cosmic do not enter signs, warning of the curious, or protecting the rest of the universe from something within. The human mind recoils at the scale of such operations, but we've seen glimmers of this thinking on Earth. Ancient civilizations built forbidden zones, walled cities, and monuments meant to last beyond memory. What we interpret as art, boundary, or warning may mean something else entirely to those who made them. Still, not every scientist is convinced. Astrophysicist Dr. Katie Booman, who helped capture the first image of a black hole, reminds us the universe is often stranger than we expect, but that doesn't always mean it's artificial. Sometimes nature just surprises us. And yet, as we push our instruments further, we keep finding new exceptions, new places where nature behaves less like a blind watchmaker and more like a careful curator. Perhaps the greatest danger is to assume that absence means safety. If the boat's void is a relic, a work in progress, or a test, then our discovery of it might not be the end of the story, but the beginning of a new chapter in cosmic history. So we return to our ancient instinct, to wonder, to speculate, to ask questions that have no answers yet. Could our own civilization one day reach these heights? Will we leave our own marks, voids, or monuments in the sky? Or will we simply vanish, leaving behind more silence for others to find? And the most haunting question, if there are civilizations beyond the Kardashev scale, are they watching us now, or are they long gone, their work echoing in the cosmic void? In the next chapter, we'll look for echoes, ancient signals, gravitational scars, and the subtle fingerprints of cosmic history to see if something really did happen here, before us. Across the boat's void, where silence reigns and the ordinary laws of cosmic structure seem suspended, astronomers began to search for something deeper, evidence, not just the absence of matter, but traces faint, lingering echoes of what might have once been here. If something happened in this corner of the cosmos, would the universe leave behind scars? In 2012, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Astrophysics focused their efforts on gravitational lensing, the subtle bending of light from distant galaxies as it passes massive objects or structures. Even in empty space, dark matter can leave its imprint on passing photons. By carefully analyzing distortions in the shapes of galaxies behind the void, the team hoped to map invisible structures like ghostly fingerprints on a pane of glass. The data they gathered was, at first, perplexing. The region seemed even emptier than models predicted, not just missing matter, but missing gravity. Yet, at the very center of the void, a strange anomaly flickered in the data, a ripple. It wasn't a galaxy cluster, nor a black hole. It was a subtle curvature, as if space itself remembered something massive had once passed through, warping the cosmic fabric in its wake. Dr. Helene Fisher, a gravitational lensing specialist, described the discovery in almost poetic terms. It was like finding a ripple on a pond long after the stone has sunk, she said. A memory of a vanished presence. This anomaly, as it turned out, didn't fit any known category. It predated nearby galaxy structures and, most baffling of all, lined with models of cosmic expansion before the local universe took its present shape. Could this be the ghost of a vanished supercluster? Or was it something even more dramatic, the signature of a cataclysm, a cosmic event that erased entire swaths of structure in an instant? The more researchers probed the ripple, the more it resisted explanation. The patterns didn't match simulations of mergers or standard void evolution. Instead, it seemed to be a compression wave, as if some ancient force had briefly pressed in on this region, then vanished, leaving a scar in space-time itself. Others looked for electromagnetic signatures, hoping that radio waves, X-rays, or gamma bursts might offer clues, but the void's silence persisted. No radiation, no heat, no lingering energy from supernova or quasars. It was as though whatever happened here had left behind nothing but a gravitational whisper and echo so faint it could be mistaken for the universe's background noise. This echo, however, triggered a wave of speculation. Some theorists suggested the void could be the aftermath of a primordial black hole's passage, a relic from the earliest days of the universe, when chaos and high-energy collisions shaped the cosmic web. Others wondered if it was the residue of a titanic struggle event, where matter and antimatter annihilated on a galactic scale, leaving behind emptiness and a single gravitational aftershock. But the strangest idea came from a small team of researchers in Tokyo. What if the void's echo is not a natural event at all, but an artifact, a message, encoded in gravity, meant for those capable of seeing it? If so, the boat's void would not just be an absence, but a recording, a silent signal left by ancient hands or ancient minds to be deciphered by those who came after. The debate continues. For now, the ripple remains a mystery reel, persistent and uniquely placed at the void's heart. It is a kind of cosmic palimpsest, a page where the previous story has been erased, but not quite forgotten. And perhaps that is the greatest hint of all. The universe, for all its violence and chaos, remembers. Even when light has fled and matter has dispersed, space itself carries the faintest signatures of history, memories pressed into the geometry of reality. So we listen, we scan, we model and dream, because in the silence of the boat's void, the echoes of the ancient past may be the closest thing we have to a witness. But if there are echoes, could there be a reply? In the next chapter, we'll see what happened when humans sent a question into the void. Then what came back was not what anyone expected. When all else fails, sometimes the only way to confront the unknown is to ask it a question. By 2023, the boat's void had become more than a puzzle for astronomers. It was a challenge to the human spirit. Silence can be a barrier, but it can also be an invitation. What would happen if we dared to speak into the cosmic emptiness, to see if it would echo back? That year, Dr. Leela Banassi and her team at the European Southern Observatory designed an audacious experiment, a multi-frequency probe, beaming carefully, coded pulses across the electromagnetic spectrum directly into the heart of the boat's void. The plan was simple. If anything, even dust, rogue planets, or an unknown civilization was lurking in the dark, perhaps it would answer back. They dubbed it the silence test. The preparations were meticulous. Signals were crafted to mimic natural phenomena, then others modulated in prime number sequences and even in simple, unmistakable mathematical codes. Each emission was monitored with a battery of radio and optical telescopes, spanning continents as the pulses traversed hundreds of millions of light years. The world waited, nervously, as the first messages left Earth. At first, the results were predictable. Silence, a confirmation of nothingness. The instruments returned flatlines, like an EKG monitoring a patient who had long since passed. Dr. Benassi admitted, "We didn't expect an answer, but we had to ask." Then something happened. Days into the experiment, a faint return signal registered on the deepest radio band. Not a reflection, but a bend in the frequency, a warping of the outgoing signal. Instead of scattering randomly as it would in normal intergalactic space, the pulse seemed to be drawn in, its wavelength shifting, curving toward the void's center, as if gravity or something stranger was tugging at it. Even more inexplicably, some of the outgoing information was missing on return. Erased in transit, the team checked for interference, recalibrated instruments, and even considered sabotage or equipment failure. Nothing explained it. The anomaly persisted, repeatable and unique only to signals aimed at the boat's void. What could pull on light, bend frequency, and selectively erase data? Normal matter, even dark matter, shouldn't behave this way. It was as if the void swallowed part of the question, Benassi said, and sent back only what it wanted us to hear. Suddenly, the silence test felt less like a question and more like a negotiation. The experiment was expanded. Different wavelengths, polarizations, modulations. In every case, the closer to the void's center, the more the return signals were altered. No clear message, no artificial patterns, just a persistent, stubborn interference, like a hand reaching out to mute the sound before it ever returns. Some speculated it was a lensing effect, an extreme warping of space by a hidden mass, or an unknown type of cosmic structure. Others wondered if the void contained exotic particles that absorbed or twisted electromagnetic energy, a new phase of matter we have never encountered. A small but vocal contingent in the scientific community whispered a more unsettling idea. What if the void is an information filter? Not just an absence of matter, but a region where data itself is controlled or destroyed. Like a firewall in space, it might let some information through while erasing the rest. If so, the boat's void could be not just silent, but silencing an active intentional agent in the universe. It's a notion that's as thrilling as it is terrifying, because it means the void might not be empty at all. Instead, it could be filled with something that listens and edits, and replies in the only way it knows how, by bending the very rules of communication. Dr. Benassi reflected. We called it a silence test. But maybe the silence was the answer all along. Or maybe it's an invitation to keep asking. The experiment continues. More signals are sent, more are lost. The world watches, waits, and wonders. Are we knocking on a cosmic door that was meant to remain closed? Or are we the first to speak into a darkness that was always waiting for someone to listen? In the next chapter, we'll turn away from what's missing and peer into what might be hidden within the emptiness itself. What if the space between the stars is not as empty as we believe, but is filled with something beyond our understanding? Since the earliest days of stargazing, humanity has focused on the points of light, the stars, the nebulae, the swirling galaxies. We are drawn to brightness, to the places where matter and energy dance. But what if the real story of the universe isn't in the lights, but in the darkness between them? What if the boat's void and the great expanse between stars hold something more than emptiness? To many, empty space is just that, a vacuum, an absence, a gap to be crossed. Yet, even the best vacuums in laboratories are teeming with virtual particles, popping in and out of existence. The void is never truly empty. Quantum physics teaches us that, at the smallest scales, space boils with activity, fleeting fluctuations that, in rare moments, may give birth to entire universes. So what might exist in a billion light-year-wide expanse that's colder, darker, and more silent than anywhere else? The question has obsessed not just astronomers, but theoretical physicists, mathematicians, and even philosophers. In 2019, a team from the Perimeter Institute began modeling what exotic forms of matter or energy could persist in such a place. One possibility: dark matter, not as a diffuse fog, but as complex, self-organizing structures, filaments, membranes, or shadow galaxies that are invisible to our instruments, but as real as anything else. If so, the boat's void could be filled with forms and patterns we simply cannot see, a secret architecture of the cosmos. Others speculate about axion fields, hypothetical particles so ghostly that they rarely interact with normal matter. If ixions exist, they could flow through the void in vast, undetected rivers, shaping the region's gravitational landscape. And then there's dark energy, the mysterious force accelerating the universe's expansion. What if, in places like the boat's void, dark energy pools and ripples, creating pockets of altered physics, time, or even consciousness? Still more provocative is the idea that intelligence could lurk in the emptiness. Not life as we know it, not even machine intelligence, but something far stranger: consciousness embedded in the structure of space itself. What if the void is not a desert, but a habitat for forms of existence beyond biology? Some have called this the substrate hypothesis, that sentience might arise in the most unlikely places, quietly shaping the universe from behind the scenes. For decades, mainstream science has brushed aside such notions. But lately, as more anomalies surface, a new openness is emerging. SETI researcher Dr. Sophia Rayani argues that we may need to redefine our search. If intelligence exists in forms we can't imagine, it won't announce itself with radio waves. It will be in the patterns, in the silences, in the places we never thought to look. Viewers, consider: what would it mean if the space between the stars is alive with information, with structure, with awareness? Would it comfort us or terrify us? Could we even recognize it if we saw it? And yet, there are ancient stories from cultures around the world that describe the void not as empty, but as inhabited. Aboriginal Australians speak of the Great Dark, a place of creation and memory. The Dogon people of Mali describe spaces where the ancestors whisper. Modern science may laugh, but sometimes myth sees farther than microscope. Astronomers today are devising experiments to search for these hidden presences. Ultra-sensitive gravimeters, quantum entanglement detectors, and cosmic background analyzers are all being aimed not at the light, but at the dark, seeking any deviation, any hint, any pattern that suggests the void is more than the sum of its missing parts. And perhaps, one day, the darkness will answer. Perhaps, As we peer deeper, we'll realize that the greatest secrets of the universe have always been hidden. Between the stars next, we turn from the realm of theory to the realm of memory. What if our oldest myths, our most persistent intuitions, have always carried the memory of the void? Could the stories of our ancestors contain the first hints of what modern science is only now beginning to discover? Long before telescopes, before equations, before the very language of science, our ancestors looked up at the sky and saw a living canvas, not just of stars, but of darkness. Across continents and cultures, there are stories, myths, and songs that speak of empty spaces in the heavens, places not of absence, but of presence. Could it be that our oldest stories carry echoes of a cosmic truth, that we have always, at some level, remembered the void? Consider the Dogon people of West Africa. Their cosmology, rich with metaphor and hidden knowledge, describes the universe as a vast field, dotted with seeds, the stars. But between those seeds, they say, are the regions of silence where the ancestors reside. These are not places to be feared, but places of memory and potential where creation sleeps, waiting to awaken. For the Dogon, the void is not emptiness, but gestation. Travel to Australia, and you find the Dreamtime stories of the Aboriginal peoples. Their star maps are as much about the spaces between the stars as the lights themselves. The dark rift in the Milky Way, a cosmic river empty of starlight, is the path of the rainbow serpent, the creator and destroyer in their worldview. The void is alive, a corridor through which spirits travel, the womb of all beginnings. In South America, the Quechua and Inca traditions see the dark patches in the Milky Way as yachi, or thinking spaces. These cosmic shadows are the brains of the sky zones of consciousness, where the universe dreams itself into being. Even in the Nordic sagas, the great void Gnangop is the wellspring from which all existence flows. Is this simply poetic imagination? Or did ancient minds, attuned in ways we've forgotten, sense truths that science is only now beginning to probe? Neurologists today know that the human brain is wired to seek patterns, to fill gaps. But perhaps those gaps themselves, the silences, the voids, are meaningful. As philosopher Alan Watts once said, we notice the figure, but forget the background. Yet without the background, the figure cannot exist. Modern cosmologists, too, are beginning to listen for the wisdom in emptiness. Some suggest that the voids of the universe are not simply places where matter failed to clump, but active components in cosmic evolution shaping the expansion and flow of galaxies, like the space in music shapes a melody. In this view, the boat's void is not a mistake, but a note in a symphony, a deliberate pause that makes the next crescendo possible. What if these myths are not mere stories, but coded messages, handed down across millennia, encoding a kind of deep intuition about the structure of reality? Could the recurring theme of living voids, sacred silences, and conscious emptiness be our species' earliest attempt to grapple with the unspeakable scale and mystery of the cosmos? It's an idea that blurs the line between science and spirituality, evidence and intuition. But as we probe further into the void, both with instruments and imagination, perhaps we would do well to remember the wisdom of those who came before us. They saw emptiness not as the end, but as the beginning. Not a place to fear, but a place to wonder. So here's a challenge to every viewer. Look up tonight and see not just the stars, but the shadows between them. Ask yourself, what do you feel? Is the void an abyss or an invitation? a graveyard, or a garden yet to bloom. Science will go on, mapping, measuring, calculating. But maybe, just maybe, our oldest stories have always known the quietest places in the universe are never truly empty. They are where all things start and where all things perhaps return in the next chapter. We'll confront the most personal fear that the void awakens, not the terror of what might be out there, but of what the silence says about us and our longing not to be alone. Beneath the awe and speculation, beneath the theories of cosmic engineering and the poetry of myth, there lingers a simpler, more intimate emotion when we contemplate the boat's void, loneliness. The kind that creeps in during the stillness of night, when the mind wanders beyond the boundaries of what is known. The void is not only a puzzle for astronomers, but a mirror for humanity, reflecting our deepest questions about existence, isolation, and the fear of being truly alone. Dr. Nora Vellen, a philosopher and scientist who studies the intersection of cosmology and consciousness, believes that our response to the cosmic void is, at its core, existential. When we look into emptiness on this scale, she says, we're not just searching for galaxies or answers, we're searching for ourselves. The boat's void, she argues, is a symbol, the ultimate negative space, where the universe offers no reassurance, no reply, just an unblinking silence. What does it mean, then, to exist in a universe that can produce such vast emptiness? For some, it is a sobering reminder of our insignificance, a cosmic scale that renders all our struggles and triumphs small and fleeting. But for others, it is an invitation, a challenge to reach out, to connect, to create meaning in the face of silence. As children, many of us were afraid of the dark, not because of what was in it, but because of what wasn't, the unknown, the possibility that no one would answer if we called. The boat's void magnifies that primal fear to a scale so enormous, it becomes almost sublime. To realize that for 1 billion light-years in every direction, there is only emptiness, no stars, no warmth, no signs of life. And yet, perhaps this is also a liberation. Philosopher Alan Watts once mused that we are the universe looking at itself. If so, then our curiosity, our yearning, and our loneliness are all part of the cosmic story. The void doesn't just reflect our fear, it reflects our capacity to wonder, to imagine, and to reach for connection even where none is guaranteed. Dr. Vellen poses a chilling but hopeful question. What if the universe has already spoken, and we just didn't understand the language? Maybe the silence of the void is not indifference, but mystery, not an answer, but a prompt, urging us to listen differently, to ask better questions, to invent new forms of communication that reach across not only distance, but difference. In the end, the boat's void might not be there to frighten us, but to focus us, to remind us that meaning is not handed down by the stars, but woven from our own longing. That even in the greatest darkness, the smallest light can define the space around it. So, viewers, as you contemplate the vast silences of the universe, ask yourself, does the void separate us, or connect us, by the very fact that we all look into it and wonder the same things? Is loneliness the universe's curse, or its greatest creative engine? In our final chapter, we will approach the edge of knowing, the place where science, philosophy, and imagination all break down, and we are left with only the question, what does it truly mean to stand at the threshold of the unknown? Here we stand, on the precipice of the boat's void, peering into a gulf so vast that our minds can barely hold its shape. For 15 chapters, we have explored the science, the speculation, the myth, and the emotion that this silent region evokes. Now, at the very edge of knowing, we face a truth as old as curiosity itself. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved, at least not yet. The void is less a riddle to be answered than a horizon to be approached, always receding, always beckoning us forward. For the astronomers, the boat's void is an enduring scientific anomaly. Its dimensions defy our models. Its boundaries are too sharp, its emptiness too complete. For the philosophers, it is a metaphor for absence, for the gaps in our knowledge and the spaces between all things. For the poets and storytellers, it is the black well at the center of every myth, the unknown that gives meaning to the known. To confront the void is to confront ourselves. Every attempt to map it, explain it, or imbue it with meaning is a reflection of the human drive to understand. We are the universe made conscious, and we cannot help but wonder at its silences. But the void does something more than invite wonder. It also teaches humility. For all our progress, all our algorithms and telescopes, there remain places where our reach falls short, where our instruments return only the echo of our own questions. In these silences, we find both frustration and freedom, the freedom to imagine, to speculate, to create new tools, new theories, new myths. The void, in its refusal to yield, grants us space to dream. Perhaps that is its greatest gift. There is a story told among cosmologists about the first humans who mapped the sky. They filled in the gaps between stars with gods and monsters, giving shape to the darkness. We have not changed so much. Now, our gaps are measured in millions of light years, and our monsters are equations, our gods are probabilities. But still, we reach, we name, we search for meaning. What if, in the end, the boat's void is not an error or an artifact, not a message or a monument, but simply what it appears to be, a silence at the heart of everything? And what if, by facing it, we learn something essential, not just about the cosmos, but about the courage it takes to gaze into darkness and keep looking, even when nothing looks back? The future will bring sharper instruments, deeper maps, and new discoveries. One day, perhaps, we will learn what happened here. We may find evidence of cosmic engineering, or proof of ancient collisions, or signals hidden in the silence. Or we may find that the universe is even stranger than we can guess, and that the void is merely a doorway to deeper mysteries. But for now, we stand at the edge of knowing. The boat's void remains quiet, immense, and unresolved. It calls to something deep within us, the part that refuses to accept silence as the final answer, the part that sees emptiness as a challenge. So, as you turn away from this story, take a moment to consider, what is the void in your own life? What are the questions you stand before, unsure, hopeful, and a little afraid? Remember that the greatest discoveries often begin not with knowledge, but with wonder. Perhaps the universe is asking us to keep listening to the silence, to each other, to the questions that echo back from the edge. And perhaps, by doing so, we become part of the cosmic story ourselves, the listeners, the seekers, the light that dares to cross the dark.